welcome to Learning Music with Pat. We've been working on learning how to count time, how to read notes, and all of the basics of music, and I have been focusing basically on counting time, what notes are worth, and I'm going to continue with that today. I know it probably seems like kind of a crash course, and this is probably about the third segment I've done this, but this is what you really need to know in order to play music and play it effectively and have it sound good. And ordinarily, I wouldn't be giving you all this information at one time. I would be giving it to you gradually as you progressed in terms of your learning other things like fingerings and tonguings and playing songs and so forth. But I think I really need to do this overview because there are a lot of people who really watch and they don't have any musical knowledge as such. They want to. I've been told there are groups of people that are watching that they know how to strum their guitar, they know how to do some basic things, but they don't understand what music is all about. If you were taking piano lessons, this would be a part of your teacher showing you things about music, or guitars do well with chords and they know all of that. But brass and woodwinds, we don't even play chords. We can't do it. We can only play one note at a time. But I need to give you this overview because I want to cover more than just the woodwinds and more than just the recorders, which of course are a woodwind. So I'm going to continue, and the first thing I'm going to show you is this chart here. When I show you a chart with a keyboard, I usually use this one. I mean, it may be in different forms on different pages, different sizes, but I usually use this one. And the reason I use it is that it is a 2-octave range here. This would be the lowest note, and it's a C, and this is a C in the mid-range, and this is the high C. These are all the notes, with the exceptions of sharps and flats, these are all the notes that the recorder can play. So it's not unusual that I come in with a keyboard, a picture of a keyboard that's only 2 octaves high, 2 octaves in length. Now, what I also have done is, I'm not going to work with this today, but just to show you, these are the staff notes that go along with the keyboard. This would be your C, this would be your D, and I've got a line so you can go all the way up the scale. This is the mid-range C, and this is what it appears like on the staff. This is the high C, and that appears the way it is on the staff, and it's up here. And I've also shown the fingerings for the notes, which I'm also not going to get into today, but just to show you that this chart is very helpful, and if I were teaching recorders to students, I would make sure they all had one of these because they could easily see where the notes are on the staff and where they are on the keyboard with the fingerings, and that's important. Of course, this chart being small, I did not include the sharps and flats. That I would be doing separately. And when I first start teaching anybody, any instrument, I usually start off with the B because it's easier to balance an instrument because you've got your thumb and you've got the forefinger of your left hand involved. And then you just go down the scale, B, A, G, F, E, D. And when I taught a whole class of school kids recorders, that's what I started with. And so here are the staff notes right here, and the fingerings for those notes, starting with the easiest one in order to learn how to play. This would be one of the easier notes to get. And this D, it doesn't go all the way down to C, but the instrument can play a C. But it's a problem playing C. A low C is not an easy note to get. That low C right down here is hard to get for a lot of reasons, so I usually don't start off with anything that's that difficult. Now, what I want to show you, if you can kind of keep this in your mind, because I want to show you a full range. I'm going to put it over here for now. I want to show you the keyboard, the full keyboard, piano keyboard has 88 keys. And so what I've done is, I know it looks a little kind of homegrown, maybe not quite sophisticated. Let me bend this back a little. This is an entire keyboard. That is, it has all the keys that a keyboard has. It has 88 keys in it, if we can kind of focus on that. You may not be able to get it all. That's good. Now, that low C that I showed you on this chart, remember I said this is the low C over here? That low C is actually right here on a full keyboard. We call it a low C, but it's also a middle C because woodwinds can't get below it. And so I took the scale, the 2-octave scale, and started it right here. This is the lowest that the recorder can get. This is the lowest that the flute can get. Saxophones can get to that B flat, and clarinets can get down to this range. So not all the instruments are limited and can only get to this low C, but many of them cannot get below it. Many of the woodwinds can't. So when I show you a chart that has a 2-octave range, that lowest note is actually this note here. And so that means that there are a lot of notes to the right of it. There are a lot of notes to the left of it. These notes will be bass notes, which we don't go into because we usually play off the treble clef. These are all treble notes, and we usually use these because these are all what the woodwinds can play. Now the flute, this is the highest that the recorder can get. It's a high C. There is this C right here. The flutes can get that. The regular flutes can get that. That's considered to be C above high C. This is high C. This is C above high C. But the flutes can't get any beyond that. But that's a lot when you consider that entire range. And the pianos only can get this octave here. And it is so high, it has so many ledger lines, which I'll be showing you. It has so many ledger lines that they don't even write the music. They write the music for this range and then put a sign on it indicating that you have to play it an octave higher than the highest range of the flute. And that's for the piano. So low C is middle C. And this is a 2-octave range that most of the woodwinds can play. Flutes go an octave higher, and then the piano goes an octave higher still. This is the top note of the piano. There are no notes any higher than that, right here. And for the lower notes, you get into the bass notes. You have a C here that's low, you have a C here that's low, and you have a C here that's low. So you really have 3 octaves of C's below the middle C for the bass notes, and you have 4 octaves above the C for the treble clef. So that range that we deal with is right here, right here. Now let me show you another keyboard that I drew. I used to bring in all kinds of charts and really big charts. I'm trying to kind of make them so they're not quite so huge, just for the ease of carrying it. So here's another chart that I made out for keyboard. I hope it'll stay. Okay. Now, the middle C would be right here. That's what it would be. Whoops, I'm dropping in here. The middle, that would be middle C. Now, this is not the full range, but it can show you that here's another C and here's another C. So you get a 2-octave range up here, and those are the bass notes. I made these notes. This is not a full range either, and we would say the middle C was right here. And I just wanted you to see the relationship between the sharps and the flats in the keyboard, because all of these are just regular notes. All of the white notes are all regular notes. When you get into the black notes, you get their sharps and you get your flats. So here's a C. If I want a C flat, then I go down to that B. That's a half a step. A flat is a half a step lower than what you're playing. A sharp is a half a step higher. So let's take a look. This here is the G, right here. C, D, E, F, G. So we're on this G. What about, so this means this would be an F. What if we wanted an F sharp? The F sharp is going to be right here, 1/2 step higher. That's what most of them are, 1 step higher, or 1/2 step higher, or 1/2 step lower. So for the F, this would be the F sharp. But if you're on this G, what if you want a G flat? A G flat is 1/2 step down, and it's on that same note as the F sharp is. F sharp, G flat. That's called an enharmonic note because it can be written as a flat or a sharp. You can get it either way. If you go down to it, it's a flat. If you go up to it, it's a sharp. So we'll be getting more done in terms of that later. And this I just wanted you to see. I could use this very easily in teaching kids. So if I was teaching a clarinet student or a flute student, it wouldn't matter. I would always have a keyboard with me in some form, either charts, or I'd bring one, or the place where I would be teaching them would probably have a keyboard. So now what I want to do is I want to put this down, and I want to put this notebook up, because as we've been talking about counting notes, I want to show you some music and point out some things. This actually comes from Handel's Messiah, but it has some things, real things, that I want to show you to make it easier for you to learn how to read music. Take a look out here, if we can get kind of a close-up of that. Oh, thank you, that's great. Notice you've got 2 treble clefs and a bass, and notice you've got a line connecting them, and notice that you've got a little bracket here. Now that always tells you something. These are all played together. This is going to be a solo part. It's either going to be sung or someone's going to be playing it on an instrument, and because I'm familiar with the music, I can tell you that it's going to be sung. I know this piece. Here's your treble clef. Now notice that C right beside it. That C is the same thing as 4/4 time, and of course all those lines have that C. This is the bass clef. That means it would be played. This is a piano part, really, right here. This is a piano part, and the piano is playing both the treble and the bass clef together, which normally they do. This is going to be a hold. It starts right on that note, and it goes all the way to that note. So a person who's singing it is going to hold those notes, they're not going to tongue the note. They're going to put it together as if it was one note. So instead of holding this for 4 beats, they're going to hold it for 8 beats. It's just a hold, a very long hold. Notice this P stands for piano. Now I want to take a look. It says tenor solo, so you know what range of voices is singing it. And now if you look here, down here, here is a very, very long, dark line. These are all the singers' voices. You have soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. Now when Handel wrote the Messiah, he wrote it just for those 4 parts. He thought about writing it for 6 parts, but it would made it even more difficult than it already is, and it's difficult music. But he thought that it should be done in 6 parts, but he thought that people wouldn't understand music enough to be able to do it, and he may have been right about that, because this is very difficult. Long, long bracket, they are singing together, but you notice there's a line right down here. This is the piano part. On this score, it's called the Schirmer score, you have the piano part, treble and bass, with all the music, and then you have all of the singers' parts. So if you ever sing in the Messiah, and I used to do it every year, that we use one of these books. It's a thick book. It's got like all of the songs in it, like 52 songs or something like that. I can't remember for sure. And this is in the key of D. It has 2 sharps in it. Here's your treble and bass, and you've got that bracket. That's the piano part. It's played together, and as it is played together, all of the singers are singing along with it, their own individual parts. Now, I did a a segment a little while back about conducting, because you've got more than just a piano part. This is what they give the singers so they can follow along with the music and sing their parts. But you've got, you've got all kinds of instruments in the orchestra. You've got basses, you've got trumpets, and all the score for a conductor has to have all of those parts. Now, let me flip this page, and I've just magnified these parts together. This is the bass clef. All of the others are singing off the treble clef, including the tenor. Tenors can sing pretty high, as you know, and this is the piano part. Let's move on from here. I'm going to try to get this to keep flat, but I'm not sure that I can do it. Allegro. Allegro means fast, and all of the parts are listed together. This is in the key of D. Here's Allegro, and this is an interesting little thing here. This is a metronome measure. This is a metronome signal. A quarter note is worth 84. There's 84 beats in a measure. In other words, you're playing it pretty fast. It's 84 beats to a measure. That just basically tells you how fast it is going. A lot of music is only 50 or 60 or 70. So allegro also means fast, but this will tell you exactly how fast. Now, I don't have a metronome to come in and show it to you, but a metronome you can set it. Like if I want to know exactly how fast is this 84, it's 84 beats to a minute. All I have to do is set it on the 84 and set it going, and it'll go tick, 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 whatever the timing is. So I know that it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's going to be very fast. That's the allegro tells me that. Anyway, this is the bass, the treble clef, the bass clef. The bracket puts them together. They play together. This is F. F means that you're playing it loud. That's forte. You know, I've talked about forte, double forte, fortissimo. This is forte. This is the same as 4/4 time. I want to point out to you, this is a one-beat rest. When we draw it, we don't draw it exactly like that. And I've gone over some of that with you, but this is what it looks printed out professionally. And this is an eighth rest. It has this one little flag on it. It's like a slanted line, and that's a little flag on it. That makes that an eighth rest. And this is a quarter note. This is an eighth note. Now, you know that an eighth note has one flag. Due to the fact that this is a professional production, they bring that flag all the way up, but it does count as one flag, and that makes that an eighth note. They don't do it here. Here's the eighth note with a little flag on it, but up here they bring the flag up and it actually touches the lower note, but that doesn't change the value of it. Then I've told you, you can take a group of eighth notes, you can put them together and put a line, and that line acts as a flag for both of them. And here you have that. You have a line down here. All of these are eighth notes, but you have two more notes up here that a soprano would be singing, and they're also eighth notes. They attach them together. This is a chord. A chord is when you play at least 3 notes at the same time. I'm going to be showing this to you. I just want to see show it to you so you can see how it's done professionally. And this is your hold from here to here. So that note is added on to that note. When you play it, you don't stop and tongue that note. You tongue this note, and then you hold that on as if it was attached. This is your half note. This is also a hold down here. It can be written down like that as well as up, because these are lower notes. This maybe a baritone would be singing this. Okay, and then I'll fold this and move this up. When you see it enough, it starts to make sense. What is this Hebrews 1:5? It's shown on all of these. The Hebrews 1 side, if you look at the Messiah, it's all based on Scripture. And this is just telling what you're singing about. You're singing about that verse, Hebrews 1, 5. Okay, here again, all played together. This is the piano part bracketed. This is the solo part. C means 4/4 time. This is a whole note worth 4 beats because it is a whole note, so it's worth whatever the time signature says it is. And here's a single rest. This is a chord. This is a chord. Woodwinds don't play them. Instead, we play arpeggios instead of chords, and I'm going to go into that probably next time. We won't have a chance to finish with this. This darkened line right here, it shows you that the song is finished. Okay, and these are all eighth notes, one flag, some brought up to the note, some not brought up, but one flag, so they're all eighth notes. This is the eighth rest. There are no 16ths here. Treble clef, bass clef. So you see what's involved in reading music. Now I'm going to, and I don't know, I don't have much time left, but I'll start this. I want to start off with the basics of the staff and what it's like. This is a staff. You see it all the time. I've made it wide, but you count the staff in numbers 1 through 5. 1 would be this lower, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you ever want to identify a note, it's on the 4th line up, or it's on the second line up, or whatever. This is a treble clef. Treble clef. These are bar lines, sometimes called measure lines. All of the music in here, and I don't have any written in, but all of the music in here is a measure. And you play measure by measure by measure. And here you have 2 flats. This is in the key of B flat. And here you have the time signature 4/4. This whole thing is a measure. And you have on the 3rd line up, 1, 2, 3, that little rectangle, that is a 2-beat rest. And here you have a half note, and the line goes down on the left because I didn't write it up. I could have. It's just my choice to do it this way. This is a 2-beat note. So you have your 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's your measure line. Now, I don't know, I don't have too much. I'd like to go over a little bit more, kind of use up more time. Now, on some music, you're going to see something like this. Not all music has it. It's just and it's usually written pretty small. It's not usually written as big as the notes. That simply tells you what your lowest note and what your highest note is in the entire piece. So for students just learning how to play, or for people who are just curious, in fact, I sometimes look myself to see if I can find it. If I have a piece I'm going to practice on, a piece I'm going to play, what's my lowest note going to be, and what's my highest note going to be? Well, it's going to be a D is the lowest note. That would be this one right here. And this is going to be the high D, and that's going to be this one right here, or I'm sorry, the high D is a little bit higher than that. It's a G right here. Right here is going to be the highest note. So you have the D to the G, and it just gives you that range. And then you see this little symbol, the metronome marking, as it's called, MM, metronome marking. This is a quarter note, and the whole measure is 60 beats to the measure. And if you use a metronome, you can get a sense of that. That's kind of medium fast, but not too fast. So your key signature, it's in the key of G, you have 1 sharp. The time signature is 4 beats to a measure, and a quarter note gets 1 beat. So I have these quarter notes, but I wouldn't have to do it that way. I could write any number of notes, but somehow, mathematically, it's got to add up to 4 beats to the measure. This is 4 beats. Here's a 4-beat rest. It's on the 4th line of the staff, hanging down, and so that's a 4-beat rest, which is the same as a whole note. You count your rest exactly the same way as you count your notes. Well, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to close it here, but we'll continue with this next time, and I'm sure we'll make good progress toward completing it. But I really need to have you know these things. If you're going to be a musician and if you're going to play well, you really need to know how to what's called read the music, because we basically are reading music as a language. So I'll close it here. Please join me next time.